Welcome to another episode of Patio Pondering, the podcast, where I like to explore the obscure, the important, and those things we don't talk about on leadership and agriculture and everyday life. Today's discussion doesn't start in the boardroom or with a business plan or with a guest. It's a solo episode, and it actually starts with a moment at this last weekend's Indiana State Fair where I should have spoken up. And it's about silence on my part and silence on the part of other adults that were privy to what we saw. This morning we woke to another hazy morning here in northeast Indiana, thanks to our neighbors to the north and our forest fires. And as I was sitting this morning drinking my cup of coffee after I slept in just a little bit, I couldn't get that moment out of my head when I knew I should have spoken up. And I told myself, say something if it happens again. And then it happened. I said, if it happens again, I'll say something. And then it stopped. So here's the scene. We were in one of the livestock barns at the state fairgrounds. I'm not going to tell you which one. I'm not going to tell you the circumstances around it to protect the innocent, I guess one would say. And I was standing there, not really paying attention, and there were 4 adults. 4 4-H'ers, and all of a sudden I hear the smack and some words. I don't know what the words were, and because I was kind of daydreaming. And then I heard a smack again. And it's kind of smack that if you heard it in a bar or a social scene, you'd turn your head expecting a fight to come out. And then I heard some more disgruntled words, and I heard a smack again. And I looked up, and an adult smacking an animal. And I knew what the adult was trying to do. He was trying to get this animal to behave, and it wasn't. After all, this animal had nowhere to go because it was contained in an area. And I said to myself, man, I got to say something. I'm the adult. I'm big. I got a loud voice. I can't have a loud voice. I said, I got to say something. And I said, no, if it happens again, I'll say something. And smack. If it happens again, I'll say something. Well, after thinking this 3 times, it stopped. Maybe 4 times. I don't know how many times it happened. But it stopped. And I thought at the moment, oh man, I should have said something. It's crap that it happens. And I didn't chastise myself for not saying anything until this morning, over my cup of coffee, looking over the hazy landscape, it hit me that I should have had the nuts to stand up and say, with a very loud voice, with my 6-foot 2-inch frame behind it, to say, enough is enough. You need to stop. And I also had this thought. If this person was willing to smack this animal in somewhat of a public setting, then what did this person do when they were at home with nobody watching? Maybe nothing happens. Maybe they don't do it. But that animal sure got a smack on its butt. Now, for us Gen Xers, we can harken back to the 70s when we misbehaved, maybe walking through Kmart with our parents, or Mr. Wiggs for those of us in the Fort Wayne area, Rogers and Maloli's, being a smart aleck little kid, and our mom just wailed off and smacked us on the butt. Yeah, we deserved it. It was the 70s. We're Gen X, we took it. But this animal couldn't do that. This animal couldn't walk away. This animal did nothing wrong other than not want to do what somebody wanted it to do. And the funny part, when this person walked away from that animal and allowed the 4-H'er to do what it needed to do with that animal behaved. And the animal did what it was supposed to do. So I'm sitting here thinking multiple thoughts about, why didn't I speak up louder? Or why didn't I speak up at all? And I think about those times in my life, whether it's in volunteer situations or in family situations or at work, that I didn't speak up when I should have. And not necessarily to defend the helpless, like we're talking about with this animal, but it's to defend what's right, to contradict a myth, falsehood, misinformation. And in so many cases, for me and everybody else, it's so much easier to just say, keep your mouth shut, stay out of it. Because it's easier to just walk away and ignore it, until walking away and ignoring it affects you. I mean, we think back to times that you're in a meeting and somebody steals a narrative and the narrative is completely wrong. or they're misconstruing something, or they're spreading facts that aren't facts about an employee or something that happened. And we just sit there because we want to get out of the meeting, or we don't want to be the one that makes waves. I remember when I was in a border review for a scout, and the leader that was leading this border review was treating it as if he was part of the Spanish Inquisition and going through every single requirement that this scout was, tell me about this, and tell me about this, and you have to show me this knot. And finally at the end I said, we're done. We can't do any more to this scout, because we'd already spent a half an hour with the scout that should have taken 10 minutes. And 8 of those minutes should have been just jovial, talking with him, but I didn't speak up soon enough. So we stay quiet. Is it because we're fearful of conflict? Probably. Is it because we don't want to rock the boat? Definitely. Do we tell ourselves it's not my place, I don't have the power, I'm not in the position where I can make those decisions? And make your silence okay with that justification? Yep, we do. And I think the one that a lot of us experience in volunteer situations is we think somebody else will step in. Surely the 4-H leader, surely the state fair official, surely the extension agent, somebody will speak up. But what happens when none of them do? And the other thing, and probably the sadder thing, is we just think it's no big deal. And maybe it won't happen again. So if we're just quiet and we don't make a big deal of it, it won't happen again. Sometimes that's the case, sometimes it isn't. But think of the cost of our silence to ourselves. I mean, think about me. I was silent 24 hours ago, and I was anxious thinking about it this morning over coffee. Kicking myself for not saying anything when I know I should have said something. And what does it say to others around in this situation or other situations when people look up to you as a leader, as a force, as an animal science professional and say, well, if Dr. Smith didn't say anything, then why should I say anything? I mean, that sets a bad precedent. And then to the other, more impactful part of silence is, what does it mean to that animal that was getting smacked? It wasn't a corrective smack. Like, you're doing wrong, not that it justifies it. Or what happens if that was a kid that had no clue what was going on but got smacked anyways? What does your silence teach them? That society isn't there for them? I don't know. So I was looking forward. I can't undo the moment of me being silent. But I can think forward to when I see something like that again, to give myself the intestinal fortitude to say, no, you can't do that. Stop. Enough is enough. I mean, we think about it. As we're starting college season and we're prepared to send a new class of children, they're 18-year-olds, they're our children, to campuses throughout the country. And we think about the young ladies that we send off to dormitories to explore life, to learn, to expand their opportunities. We tell them that no means no, and enough is enough. And we empower them and expect them to have their words heeded. And we expect our daughters to have the power to say no, yet when we're in a situation, in this case with the lamb, and we're quiet, we don't say no. What kind of message does that send to those that we tell that they have to say no if they're uncomfortable? I should have been the voice for that animal yesterday, and I wasn't. So next time I feel that something's wrong and my gut is twinging and giving me that, dude, you know this is wrong signal, I need to follow it. I need to heed it. I need to say, yes, gut, you're right. This is wrong. And dude, you need to stop what you're doing. Doesn't matter if we're at a 4-H show, I'm at a meeting, I'm at a Boy Scout outing, or even here at the house with my family and friends. We have to trust our gut sometimes. And I guess the other thing that we have to consider, speaking up doesn't mean yelling and being confrontational, even though I probably wanted to yesterday. It's just simply, hey, that's enough. Let's back away and let cooler heads prevail, maybe? So as I chastise myself for not speaking up yesterday, we don't have to be perfect in our leadership and examples we give to our children and the people we're trying to mentor, the people that follow us. But we need to be present in what we do and what we say, and be present enough that when we see something that our gut tells us is wrong, to speak up about that wrong, the unfairness. So I know this has been an uncomfortable podcast. I've tried to keep it as anonymous as I can, but I hope it does some good for some of us. I hope it gives somebody the guts to say, no, stop. Let's think about this differently. Let's not talk about them behind their back. Let's not do whatever because we know it's not right. So I'll leave you with this question. Where in your life have you stayed silent, and what did that silence cost you? And what will it take for you to speak up next time you see something that needs to be dealt with? Thank you for listening to this episode. I know it was a little heavier than my typical episodes, but I promise we will return to having guests where we talk about their agricultural roots and how those ag roots formed them, made them the people they are today. The next episode is going to be a banger, as my guest said in our discussions, and we're going to dive deep into his roots, and it should be a fun one. As always, thank you to my followers for the comments, the follows, the suggestions for guests. I'm looking forward to sharing more of what agriculture roots can do to form people today.